China during the Age of Imperialism was under the influence of Britain and other European countries by force. China was a strong independent country that had no intention of interfering with British or other European countries' troubles. They were satisfied as they were and didn't want any troubles, but their wishes were not granted.
China's society before Britain imperialized them was very independent. They were a self-sufficient country that produced everything they needed, so they had no incentive to trade with Britain or other European countries. However, other countries didn't favor their independence and wanted to do something about it. Britain was one of the stronger empires of this time, and because of this, they felt the need to help the other lesser countries. China was not necessarily a lesser empire, they just had no need for European trade, and for this reason, it made Britain want to trade with them even more. This related to the white man's burden. China didn't want to trade with them until they found opium. Opium is the dried latex obtained from the opium poppy. Its active ingredients are morphine and codeine, which are usually processed chemically to produce heroin. Thus is a drug the Chinese were soon addicted to. Lin Zexu was the government official during the Manchu Qing dynasty. He tried to prevent opium smuggling into China. He did this because China was spending all their money buying opium from Britain, and if they were to go to war, there would be no soldiers to fight the enemy. Most males under the age of 40 were addicted to smoking opium at this point, and Lin Zexu thought that opium coming into China needed to stop, because China was spending all their money on it, and if they were to go to war, they would have no money and no soldiers. Lin Zexu, commissioning to eliminate opium, went to the port of Canton in 1839. He blockaded the British trading ships and confined 350 foreign traders until the British surrendered 20,000 chests of opium, which he publicly destroyed. Then he threatened to ban all commercial traffic after the British refused to stop shipping opium to China. The First Opium War started after this when the British lost their temper. Some British sailors shot a Chinese villager, and the British government refused to turn the accused men over to the local courts. Hostilities broke out, and the British sent warships to attack the coast of China. The cities of Hong Kong and Canton were placed under a blockade by the British, soon followed by Amoy and Ningbo when the British Navy appeared in 1842. The Chinese were outnumbered and soon capitulated, because the British had a skilled navy and soon overpowered the Chinese. The Chinese agreed to the Treaty of Nanjing, which consisted of war expenses of $20 million and to open the ports of Amoy, Fuzhou, Ningbo, and Shanghai to the British trade. This war greatly crippled China, both physically and financially. China now lacked the men needed for a sudden attack and the money with which to buy goods and to feed their soldiers. Also, the Chinese granted Britain with the right of extraterritoriality, where the British people in China were subject not to Chinese legal jurisdiction, but to consular courts. With this, the people from Britain could live in China without worrying about Chinese laws.
The Second Opium War was also known as the Anglo-French expedition to China. The French and the British joined an attack against the Qing dynasty. The war started when a ship called the Arrow was seized by Chinese authorities on the grounds of piracy and smuggling. However, the British insisted on the release of the ship, claiming that it was British and was protected under the Treaty of Nanjing. Though the British were delayed in their attack because of the Indian Rebellion of 1857, they eventually fought back, starting the Second Opium War. France joined against China when Chinese executed a French missionary, Father Auguste Chapdelaine. The Treaty of Tientsin was between Great Britain and China after the defeat of China by the Anglo-French forces in the Second Opium War. They both agreed to the residence of ambassadors at each other's courts. This also opened up 10 new ports in China for foreign trade. This treaty was ratified by the Peace of Peking 2 years later. The Treaty of Agun was when Russia wanted to become a greater known power among Europe. Russia threatened China with cannons and the promise of destruction unless China signed the treaty that issued them rights to trade. Chinese ceded 185,000 square miles of land from the left bank of the Amur River down to the Ussuri River. Because many ports of China were being forced open, the stronger empires such as France, Britain, and Germany were swooping in and expanding their spheres of influence across the border of China. They did this to try to expand their education, language, religion, and soon politics. China realized that they were getting taken over by the greater powers and objected at the turn of the 20th century. This convulsion due to anti-foreign uprising was also called the Boxer Rebellion. The European great powers, including the new-coming United States, imposed an indemnity on China, forcing it to yield to European imperialism. The United States was able to bring out the open door policy regarding China, finishing Britain's work. The Boxer Protocol in 1901 between China and the 11 world powers provided punishment for the rebellion's ringleaders by execution or exile. China was also forced to relinquish control of the route from Beijing to the sea to get 5% more tariff to pay large indemnity. After Britain and the other mostly European countries imperialized China, many things happened for better and for worse. Sea lanes between China and India opened up for trade, natural resources were becoming profitable, and Christianity was introduced because of imperialism.